Hello everybody, it's been a while since I've done one of these, but this is JBro 63.9, and I hope you guys are having a good day because we're getting into an exciting match this week. I'm a bit behind on these GP City videos, but have no fear because these will become more frequent as I am now finally out of school. I am no longer plagued with the task of finishing homework every single week, every single day. And for that reason, uploads will become more frequent, The Binding of Isaac will be up more LPs will be happening, or at least projects I have planned, and of course GPC Season 1 will be finishing up, as I have a lot of battles to catch up with. But enough of that, let's just dive into this battle. So, I had my match this week for round 6, right before the second transfer period, against Carter and the Greenville Growlithes. So, Carter is a good friend of mine. If you don't know already, he was in one of the Helix previously, and his draft is incredibly bulky at this point in the GPC. He had Mew, Sylveon, Crocodile, Hitmontop, Mega Aggron, Dragonite, Alomomola, Dragalge, Xatu, Lickilicky, Dusknoir, and Scrafty. That's a lot of bulk. Too much bulk. Uncomfortable amounts of bulk, and so I went into this match afraid of bulk. So what I did is I brought enough firepower to take out his bulk while not being out bulked myself. I knew this was going to be a stally battle, and sure enough it ended up being 49 turns. But anyway, enough blabbing, let's get into this. So, I predicted that Carter would end up bringing Mega Aggron for bulk and to wall out any fairy tapes I had, as I do have Mega Gardevoir. Scrafty for a sweeping power and to kill Mega Gardevoir, because his team was a lot more weak to my Mega Gardevoir than Mega Scizor. Sylveon for fairy firepower and a good resistance to fighting types, as I tend to bring Conkeldurr to these matches. Xatu to handle hazards, and Conkeldurr, kind of, I guess. Dragonite for general spookiness, as he is, at this point in the GPC, Carter's strongest offensive threat. His win condition, almost all the time. And then Dragalge for special firepower, or Crocodile for an Intimidate and being a general Crocodile, because Crocodile's good. My assumptions were pretty much correct. He ended up bringing Dragalge, Mew, which I didn't expect, Sylveon, Dragonite, Lickilicky, which I also didn't expect, and Crocodile. So I generally predicted this team out pretty well, but I did notice that Carter hasn't put faith into his Aggron the entire GPC at this point. So, I mean, he kind of puts faith in Mega Aggron, but honestly, I think he should have put more faith in Mega Aggron, because Mega Aggron could have been good for this battle, but enough of that. Let's just dive right into this battle here. I brought a bit of an interesting team. I brought La Hechicera, the Sorceress. I brought Conkeldurr, Muscleman. I brought Wings, Latios, Drapion, Oddjob, Volcarona, Soul, and the Gangbang Brothers. So let's just dive right into this battle. He's going to lead off with Mew, and I'm going to lead off with Latios, knowing his mistake and the fact that Latios can essentially destroy Mew. He pulls out and goes into Sylveon, which he cleverly named after attack on Sylveon, Felicity, as I go for a Trick. Now, I predicted that he would go into something that I could cripple if he was going to switch out, and if not, I could easily just switch over this choice specs, because most Mews are not specially offensive. So I trick over a choice specs and I obtain the leftovers from Sylveon, so that's handy. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out Latios, because I'm afraid of anything that this Sylveon might want to do to Latios, because Latios is not really set to take a hit. And I go into Volcarona, my specially defensive Volcarona. This is something I almost never do, but it works out wonderfully for this battle, because it walls out that Sylveon and Dragalge near perfectly. I have HP ground on this thing for, well actually I don't have HP ground on this thing, do I? I made it in such a way where I knew it could take tons of hits from Sylveon, because Sylveon was the best offensive threat Carter has, and it works out wonderfully. So he's going to go for a Hyper Voice, only do 20%, and pulled out into Dragalge, as I go for a Will-O-Wisp predicting a physical attacker, but it misses, unfortunately. No big deal. The game doesn't turn out to be too hacksy, so that's okay. So I pull out Volcarona on the next turn, and as he has Dragalge out in the field. So I'm going to go in a Conkeldurr, thinking I could take the hit better because I do have an Assault Vest, and he goes for Sludge Wave and does just over 50% damage to me. So that's bad, so I know Muscle Man's going to go down, but the good thing is I knew I didn't really need Muscle Man too much for this battle. So I'm just going for an Ice Punch, see how defensive this Dragalge really is, and it only does 60.5%, so this Dragalge can take a few hits, so I go for an Ice Punch, it kills me with Sludge Wave, and I pull out the Gardevoir. Now Gardevoir I know can kill Dragalge because he's only at around 40% now, and I have Psy Shock, so that could destroy Dragalge. So he's going to pull out, and he's going to go into Lickilicky, as I go for a Protect, evolving into Mega Gardevoir, because I have a pseudo sweeping set for this. I have Protect and Substitute, and few other moves, mainly Hyper Voice. His Fairy types are very good against his team overall. So he's going to go for a Wish as I go for a Substitute in the next turn, and then he's going to pull out Lickilicky and go into Crocodile as I go for a Hyper Voice, destroying the Crocodile. So his chances of setting up hazards are now completely gone other than that Mew. Not like hazards are really a huge issue for my team anyway. So, finally, the Sorceress kills something. I've been waiting for Mega Gardevoir to kill something, and it took way too long. So, Hyper Voice on the next turn as Felicity is out, and unfortunately, Sylveon's new choice specs have given her a lot more firepower against the Sorceress, and for that reason, I'm going to pull out Gardevoir on the next turn and go out into Volcarona, as he's going to stay in and go for yet another Hyper Voice, once again proving that Soul is very bulky and will not take any shit from Sylveon. So, he's going to pull out and go into Mew, as I'm going to go for a Will-O-Wisp this time, because this is, after all, a bulky Volcarona, not a offensive Volcarona, and I do get the burn. So thankfully, this thing is now burned, and it will not hamper me with any physical offense that it might have had. I was actually predicting Dragonite to come in to try to sweep from there. That didn't happen, but at least I burned something. So, he's going to pull out Sylveon now and go into Dragonite, predicting me not to go for another Will-O-Wisp, as I go for a Bug Buzz, and I only do 10%. I actually got the special defense drop, which at this point I didn't even know happened. I didn't even know Bug Buzz could drop special defense, so that was something. So I'm going to pull out and go into Drapion, as he's going to go double switch into Dragalge. So at this point, I know I can do some big damage to this, so I'm going to go for an Earthquake, and it does a solid 48% to this Dragalge. And Dragalge isn't able to retaliate with much firepower, with the Sludge Wave only doing 35%. So the next turn, Carter's going to pull out of Dragalge, go into Dragonite, as I'm going to go for a knockoff, smacking off that thing's leftovers, so thank God this thing does not have its multi-scale activated anymore. Unfortunately, it does have Dragon Dance, and that's exactly what he's going to do in the next turn. So he's going to go for Dragon Dance, as I reveal the Whirlwind and switch him right out. I had this Drapion for a reason. Get sweepers out, and thankfully it works wonderfully because Sylveon was dragged out. Unfortunately, Sylveon's not what I wanted, but again, I'm able to prove the bulk of Volcarona as I bring in Volcarona, and it does jack shit to Soul. I mean, the Hyper Voice does nothing. He takes it incredibly well. So, anyway, Soul is now going to go for a Flamethrower, as I don't really want to risk accuracy on a bulky mod, as Flamethrower is just there to do damage, right? So it only does 90%, and Hyper Voice does just about the same. So he's going to draw out the next turn and go into Lickilicky, as I go for a Roost to get back some of that health I had lost over time. And I'm going to pull out Volcarona now and go into Drapion, as Lickilicky goes for another Wish. Then I'm going to go for a knockoff, smack off whatever this thing has, as he goes for Fire Punch. So it turns out he actually brought Fire Punch to deal with Mega Scizor, which is something that I would never have brought against his team, because his team, it does not take... It can handle Mega Scizor a lot better than Gardevoir can. So I knew it was a great idea bringing Gardevoir instead. So I'm going to go for Toxic Spikes in the next turn, and he's going to go for another Wish. So he's going to pull out, and he's going to go into Dragonite, who doesn't get touched by the Toxic Spikes, as I go for the second layer of Toxic Spikes. And on that turn, he's going to go for an Earthquake, revealing that Dragonite does have the Earthquake, which is very common, as I'm just going to send this thing out because I thought it might try to set up, but just in case. It's always a good idea to think a little bit ahead and go, okay, well maybe he's going to do this, maybe he's not. So anyway, Mew is dragged out once again into Drapion, and now Mew burns me, because Mew happens to have Will-O-Wisp. So Mew goes for Will-O-Wisp, and Oddjob gets burned, but Oddjob doesn't really care. He's just going to smack off that Mew's item, being leftovers. So Oddjob is still regaining HP from Black Sludge, and I'm going to pull out Drapion and go back into Volcarona, because Volcarona can handle so much of his team right now, as Mew just goes for a Roost. So I'm going to go for a Bug Buzz, and thankfully he does stay in. He probably overpredicted there with whether I would stay in or not, but regardless, I go for a Bug Buzz and I do a solid 67%, as he's going to stay in and go for a Zen Headbutt, having been already crippled by his burn, which isn't helping him too much, but it does at least let me know that I made the right decision to burn this thing early on, so that's good. So, although I guess it wasn't really an intentional burn, I was more aiming for the Dragonite, but anyway. So I take him out in the next turn with a Flamethrower, just in case he tries to switch into anything else, because Fire does a lot more to the remainder of his team than Bug. So Mew goes down, and he brings out Dragalge. I don't really have many other options, but thankfully I do think I can knock out this Dragalge with a Flamethrower because it has so little health left, and thankfully Volcarona is able to do so and knocks out Drag Queen, the Dragalge. So now, in comes Dragonite. I'm going to pull out and go into Dugtrio, because Dugtrio isn't doing crap to the rest of his team. He doesn't have Aggron, and I mainly brought Dugtrio for Aggron, so he's going to go for a Dragon Dance, as I go for a Stealth Rock, and he goes for another Dragon Dance. I know he's setting up on me, but I'm not afraid of that, because I can have Drapion, who I made to take a hit, and I have the Sorceress in case he ends up going for any crazy Dragon-type moves. Unfortunately, after those late game rocks are up, but I know he can't switch in any more safely with that Dragonite, he goes for Extreme Speed, as I go for a Sucker Punch. So, unfortunately, he does knock me down to my Focus Sash as Dugtrio, and, I mean, I expected as much. I didn't think he had Extreme Speed, though. I thought he would go for something like Earthquake or anything, honestly. So anyway, Dugtrio has 1 HP. I'm going to switch him out, and I'm going to go into Drapion, as he's going to go for another Extreme Speed, so I'm just sacking off Drapion, because at this point, I knew he was kind of going to go down. He didn't have much HP left, and I'm going to go out into Volcarona. This Volcarona is going to work miracles for me now. 34 turns in, he's going to go for another Extreme Speed, almost take out Volcarona, and I land the Will-O-Wisp. Thank you, Soul. Soul is fantastic. So, finally, Volcarona doing amazing things. He's going to go for another Dragon Dance, trying to boost his attack up so he can overcome what the Will-O-Wisp has done to him. As I go for a Roost, get back all the HP I can, and I'm going to pull out now and go into Dugtrio as he sets up another Dragon Dance. Now, he will outspeed me, but he has not the most remaining attack, so he's losing HP steadily. Jeez. So what he's going to do is, because he has all this boosting going on, he doesn't want to lose his momentum, he's going to go for a Roost, as I am going to go for a Memento, just in case this thing was mixed, and I can bring its attack right back down to the neutral level with the burn and the swords and the 2 Dragon Dance boosts. So now, this Dragonite is at neutral damage, it doesn't have any boosts or sweeping power, so I can definitely take more hits with other things on the team. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out Latios now, I'm going to pull out Wings, and he's going to withdraw. So finally the sweeper is off the field, and in comes Sylveon, which I should have probably predicted, as I go for a Draco Meteor and it does nothing, but at least I don't get the special attack drop. So now, I'm going to pull out Latios and go back into Volcarona, because Volcarona can deal with the rest of this team so wonderfully, as he goes for a Heal Bell on his Sylveon, healing the burn off of Dragonite, but I expected as much. It makes a lot of sense to do so anyway. So, he's going to pull out Sylveon and go into Lickilicky, as I go for another Will-O-Wisp, just in case he's going to switch on Dragonite again, but he doesn't, so I end up burning this Lickilicky instead, which I believe was his special wall. But I'm not sure. I don't really work with Lickilickies at all. So anyway, now, he pulls out Lickilicky the next turn and goes into Dragonite. As I go for a Flamethrower, I get off a little bit of damage, and he stays in for whatever reason, as I go for a Will-O-Wisp the next turn and burn the Dragonite. So that is fantastic. This thing is once again crippled and cannot do anything to the rest of my team, as he goes for a Roost. Next turn, I'm going to pull out Volcarona and go right back into Gardevoir, because he cannot touch Gardevoir at all with anything other than Extreme Speed. as he goes for a Dragon Dance, goes for an extreme speed the next turn, and unfortunately does kill the Sorceress. I know. Dragonite doesn't really learn too many wonderful dragon attacks, other than Outrage and Dragon Claw, and maybe Dragon Rush. I don't know if it actually gets that or not, but I'm not worried about it. I didn't need the Sorceress as much. So, I'm going to bring in Latios, and I go for a Draco Meteor, and I finally defeat the Dragonite. So Draco Meteor lands, boom, done. In comes Lickilicky to deal with Latios. I pull out in a Volcarona as he goes for a Fire Punch. It's not going to do much at all. I'm just going to go for a few Flamethrowers and take down that Lickilicky after it tries to Fire Punch me. And he's going to bring in Sylveon, and that is the game as I Flamethrower that Sylveon out of existence. Why can't I talk right now? But that is it. Very satisfying game. No incredibly unfair hacks other than at the very beginning. It was a great game. He made some good plays, I made some good plays. He made a little bit of strange ones, but it's okay because in the end, that gives me another win, and that brings me back up to that neutral win-loss ratio. So, great game from Carter in Week 6 in the GPC. And this leads into the draft changes. Now, the second transfer took place after Week 6, and I made some rather big changes to the team, and I want you guys to know about them. They're pretty big, so unfortunately, right after the Sorceress does so well, I unfortunately am going to drop the Sorceress from my team. And the Sorceress is actually replaced by Clefable. Clefable is a fantastic Fairy-type Pokemon that is great at walling, which walling was something I could do, but I couldn't do too well without Conkeldurr or Rotom before. So I added Clefable to the team. Unaware is fantastic, Magic Guard is fantastic, Cute Charm is gross. Never using that. But Clefable is now on the team. Then I ended up dropping Typhlosion because Typhlosion wasn't really benefiting the team too much. The fire immunity was good for Scizor, but it wasn't really ideal. So what instead, I dropped Typhlosion, and I added Steelix to the team, because Steelix is a fantastic wall, and Steelix is able to handle a lot of things that my team couldn't already, not to mention it's good to have a flying resistance and a stealth rocking Pokemon. And then finally, I ended up dropping unfortunately, you know, I was kind of sad about this one, but it had to be done. It wasn't helping my team as much as it could have. I unfortunately dropped Amistar, his Ancientness, because he was helping the team, but not in the way I needed him to, and not in the way that would benefit my team as a whole the most. So unfortunately, I do end up dropping Amistar and replacing him with Gastrodon for a water immunity, for an electric immunity. It still has that 4x weakness to grass, but it has a lot more resistances that Amistar could not handle. Not to mention a much better resistance to steel. It's not another weakness to fighting. So I think Gastrodon was a wonderful pickup, and you are going to see in these next few weeks, Clefable and Gastrodon are definitely going to be wonderful additions to the team. So keep your eyes peeled for those upcoming GPC weeks, and I'll see you guys in the next episode when we face off against Dorizzle Tom in Week 7 and the Knoxville Bearticks. Knoxville. We face off against the Knoxville Bearticks next week, so I'll see you guys then.